Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum. Peace be unto you. Welcome back to the Septuagint versus the Masoretic YouTube channel. I'm going to look at Judges chapter 4 today in this video. There are 24 verses. Verse 1 says continued versus again. So one is saying evil never ceased. The other one says perhaps there was a break, a pause in the evil. Verse 7, them versus him, which is a multiple people, versus only Yabin. Verse 8, there's an omission of, for I know not the day on which the Lord prospers his messenger, or Yah prospers his messenger with me. So that's an important detail, that the angel is going to be helping this individual, going to be helping Barak. Verse 9, women versus woman. I looked it up in the hard copy. This is not a typo. This is only a typo on qbible.com. Verse 10, out of versus to. So they were already there in Kadesh versus they traveled to Kadesh. Verse 11, by the oak of the covetous ones versus the plain of Zanaim. Verse 14, Yah shall go forth. Statement versus the question, is not Yah gone out before you? Seems to imply that they have an element of doubt, perhaps. Verse 17, an important piece of information was omitted, which is that this individual, Heber, Heber the Kenite, was his friend. There was peace between Yabin and the house of Heber, so they were friends. That's an omission of an important piece of information that gives the story more depth. Verse 20, stand by the door versus stand in the door. So Yael could be outside or inside the tent. The Masoretic only leaves the possibility of her being inside the tent. If any man versus when any man. So this Sisera is telling her there's a possibility someone may or may not come by the tent, and the other one is saying this will certainly happen, but how would anyone come to her if she was standing in the tent? So it seems to be she was outside the tent. Verse 21, pin versus a nail, and in any case, I don't believe it's a little bobby pin or a little tiny nail. This is a tent pin, which is a large tool that is used to keep the tent secure. So it has to be strong enough and large enough to do that job and to also kill this individual, Sisera. Secretly versus softly. Fasten versus smote. And it does use fasten in the Masoretic as well for another part. Temple versus temple. So she was strong enough to put it through both sides of his head. In the Masoretic and the Septuagint, it was only through one temple. And a significant difference here is, he fainted away, Sisera, and darkness fell upon him, and he died. So if you look at the narrative, he was given milk by Yael, and perhaps, this is my suspicion, that the milk sedated him enough, and as a result of her taking the tent pin and hammering it through his temple, that's why he fainted away, and darkness fell upon him and he died. So he seemed to have lost a lot of blood. He hemorrhaged through his head and lost consciousness. He died as a result of her actions. On the other hand, the Masoretic says that he was already asleep as a result of the milk, and so she killed him in his sleep. In any case, he was already sedated. He was at a state that he could not fight back. The assumption is men are stronger than women, especially in ancient times. So unless this was a really strong woman, seems to be she was a strong woman just to be able to do this, put the tent pin through his temple, and she did not hesitate. She just did it. She was the right person at the right time to do this. Verse 22, he said to him, talking about Barak pursuing Sisera, and Yael went out to meet him, Barak, and he said to him, so he was he. So this seems to be Yael saying to Barak, come, I'll show you the man whom you seek. So that's a typo. It should be she said to him, because Yael is a woman, as we all know. So they make one mistake here, the translators do. The verse 23, routed versus subdued. So one is to beat, overthrow, or disturb, cause turmoil. The Masoretic, it means to have conquered, and I lean towards not being conquered or overthrown or have beaten, but to cause disturbance or turmoil. I believe that's what it is talking about when it says routed, and I can confirm this because in the next verse, verse 24, it talks about how Israel was still fighting against Yabin, and they prevailed more and more, so they're getting more victories. The victories are mounting up in favor of Israel towards Yabin, to the point that they utterly destroyed Yabin. So they eventually conquered him. So he was not conquered yet. Whereas in the Masoretic, it talks about how they prospered and prevailed against him until they had destroyed Yabin. So how can you have conquered him, in verse 23, from this event where Yael had essentially assassinated Sisera, and then still fighting with Yabin? So you can't subdue Yabin and then the next verse continue to fight Yabin because he's already beaten up. But it makes more sense in the Septuagint that, yeah, you've disturbed him, you've caused turmoil to Yabin in his mind, in his heart, and results in more victories, not because of his fear, but because the victory is of Yah. So that's all for this video. Thank you very much for your time. Till next time, we'll look at Judges chapter 5. Shalom Aleichem. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you.